Hey everyone, I'm Lee Chazen. I'm going to go off script a little bit right now. In fact, I'm going to go almost completely off the script and just speak from the heart, but also speak hopefully from my brain and tell you some things I've been working on and try to give you some light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, we've all been through a lot, and I want to let you know, especially if you're in the educational community, that there's definitely some good things ahead, and there's some good things that came out of COVID-19. If I can actually speak looking back on the whole experience. And so I'm doing this video now specifically to appeal for funding, for partners, for independent contractors and writers to help me produce some of these educational programs, as well as for new students to experience some of these classes, which I haven't even told you about yet. Now, a lot of this goes back to my classroom experience. I was about 7 years in the classroom as a teacher, mostly world history, but also U.S. government and speech and debate. Now, my world history club, you can read about this, on my blog, rightbrainworld.blogspot.com. I got my first teaching job because the school I applied at over in Reno, Nevada was overcrowded at the time. Some classes had like 40 or 50 students. And let's just say that the kids who were allowed to pick which classes that they signed up for. And like if they wanted out of the current class that they were in to be in with the new teacher, they could just sign a piece of paper. Well, turns out the kids who did that were not doing so well. As a result, I did not get typically A and B minus or A, B, and B minus students, but I got mostly the students who were not doing well. What that meant is, at least for me, was that there were some behavior problems. And that just happened to be my weakness going in as a first-year teacher, was how to control that. Because I was kind of where they were. I was maybe that kid too in school, having what would have probably been at the time diagnosed as ADD or ADHD. I just had too much going through my brain and too many interests. I was really big into extracurricular activities like music. I did speech and debate, I played French horn, I was on the wrestling team, tennis team, and just, if not for any of those things, I would have been like the students I had in my class, just not wanting to be there. So I'll just quickly say things were not going well, and they were trying me, and there was a lot of bad language being tossed around, and I was taking it very personally, which I learned later you just don't do. It's not necessarily directed at you. It's who knows where it's directed. And so I was taking it very personally. And so what I did is I knew that I wasn't cut out for it, and I told the teacher across the hallway from me at the time, and I told her exactly that. I don't think I'm cut out for this. I'm going to give it maybe 2 more weeks, and if it doesn't work, I'll find another line of work. I'll just take all the excess energy that I have, and I'll put it somewhere else. But later that night, I got to work thinking, like, this is where there's a chance for creativity. And I love that, by the way. Like, when things are going horribly wrong, that's when you can go deep and find something creative. There's always something on the other side of that. And I'll get into that in a minute. So what I did is I remembered a class with Dr. Megan McIntosh at the University of Nevada. She was a fantastic professor. And there was something that I had written in my notes in one of our classes, which was to come up with a kind of an experimental design for a class, like your dream class. And what I did was I adapted a game that I was really into as a kid, all the way going back to overnight camp, which was Risk by Parker Brothers, a game of global conquest. And I thought, what if you took a game like that and you just added all these different layers or dimensions to it that were educational? but that those educational things were just kind of hidden. Like you didn't talk about that up front. You just said, oh, and by the way, I need you to add these into the game. So what I did is I dreamed it up that night, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to pitch this to my students tomorrow. I'm going to write some basic notes on how it's going to look, and I'm just going to drop everything, drop all the plans. So I went in there, I was pretty darn nervous, because this is like do or die. It's either going to happen, I'm either going to have a career in education as a teacher, or it's just going to fall flat. So I go in there, it's this moment of tension. I pull up a stool. They could see by the look on my face, which maybe looked like this. I don't even know what I look like right now. And I said, you guys, I'm not going to lie to you. Things are not going well. And I'm ready to quit. But I have one idea. I have this idea. Now, I don't think your parents are going to like it. I don't think the administration's going to like it. I don't know if the other teachers are going to like it or not. But I think you might like it. And the plan goes a little bit like this. And I remember picking up a book. Now, this isn't the book. This is a book on Teddy Roosevelt. But I picked up the world history textbook, and I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take all the content that's in here, and there's 800 pages of it, and we're going to insert it into a game. And this game is going to go on for as long as we need it to go on for. And how are we going to do that? We're going to build it. Now, I'm not going to build it for you. I'm going to give you the general guidelines, and you're going to build it. And you're going to create, and I just started giving them some ideas. For example, we'll do 20 questions a week. We'll divide those into 7 different categories like vocabulary, history, famous people, trivia, geography. And I went on. And that'll be due each week. And then each one of those will be handed in, will be worth 20 points. Each point is worth $1,000 in Global Challenge money. I didn't even have a name for the game at the time, but it later became Global Challenge. Well, I'll quickly tell you that I had their attention. They were leaning forward in their seats. It got real quiet. And I thought, holy crap, this could work. And they just started coming to me like, hey, Mr. Chazen, I got this idea. I'm going to put everything into an Excel spreadsheet. We're going to read ahead in the book. We're going to start categorizing everything. We're going to collect facts and information. We're going to make this whole thing, this is going to be great. And that was just in the first year. Every year it got better and better up until the 7th year when I just said, I think it's time for me to take the next step. I don't know how much longer, because I need new things and new activities too. And so I moved on to go to graduate school, and a friend told me that the phenomenon that I was seeing in my class was something that he had read about in his personal studies, personal readings on chaos theory. I thought, how cool. Maybe there's a model for education in this. Well, let's fast forward. I'm in graduate school. I find out that there's maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 other people in the world at that time who were doing research in this area. I know they were doing research at Santa Fe Institute, but I don't know if they were applying it to education or not. So I thought, I want to break some new ground here. I don't want to do something that's already been done. So I did my research in that area, and I came up with something that I call the complex adaptive theory of education. And it's the idea that you don't just take something like Bloom's taxonomy or Gardner's multiple intelligence theory or Kohlberg's scale of moral development and on and on. You don't just take one model, but what you do is you say there's different models for different situations. Very similar to the biosphere, where you've got thousands or millions of variables at any one time just interacting and creating a sustainable situation here on Earth. And that is how I saw the classroom, as just all these different variables. But the cool thing is, and this leads into my organization and why it's called GliderCell. One of the cool things I came across was this computer experiment that was done in the early 1970s called The Game of Life And this is a rough paraphrase of how it went. Some basic lines of code. And it was basically cells on a grid. For example, if A does this, then B, the neighbor to A, will do that. And if B does this, then C does that, and so on and so forth. So it was called the game of life because you're reacting to whatever your neighbor is doing. Well, there was some very chaotic and crazy and interesting things that happened in this experiment. Many iterations into the program, there would be, for example, this orderly region and this chaotic region, and in between there was something called a glider. I later turned that into what I call a glider cell, because number one, it sounds better, but number two, to me, it kind of looked like a group, more like a cell moving. And what it was doing was created this interesting kind of diagonal line across the matrix. I mean, it's very efficient and also very artistic looking. I mean, it was a nice design, very appealing to look at. And it was not planned. It was not written into the program. So I use that as a metaphor that learning takes place not always because of the plan, but because of the unplanned thing, because of the whole being greater than the sum of its parts. So that's why my organization is called GliderCell. Now, where this all leads me is I've been working on these course ideas for many years now. The first course I want to tell you about is the Global Challenge Experiment. And I already told you what I learned from that, but the course itself is going to be what I call the user-generated classroom. It's this concept of how you as a teacher can use the principles that I discovered of how you can be more of a facilitator and less of kind of a top-down authoritarian style teacher. You'll be doing everyone a favor. You'll be empowering your students. You'll be taking the pressure off of yourself to always be there to control everything. The district will be happy because kids, the district and the administrators will be happy because the kids, or students, I should say, are going to be happier to be in your class because it's going to be interactive. It's something that they can do at home. It's a 24/7 seamless learning environment, meaning they can do this from home. They can do it from Zoom. They can be using social media. They can use any tech tool possible to build whatever game project or whatever they want to build to learn the content. It'll likely be 10 units, 3 modules per unit. Course 2 is about learning how life works, but not by studying life, by studying a game. And in this case, we're going to study disc golf. Why? Because it's a cool game. It's really popular now. It's something I've played since college. And you can also take the dynamics from that game and apply it to just about any game. So I'll be walking people through not only just the rules of the game, but what's going on mentally. So we'll be looking at things like metacognition. Metacognition means being aware of your thinking about your thinking. A lot of us don't have that. And then there's something called EQ, emotional intelligence. So in the same way that metacognition, we look at our thinking, in EQ, we become aware of our emotions. And you'll need to learn how to say things like, wow, this makes me really frustrated. I'm 4 over par on that hole. And that puts me like 9 over par, and it's only the 8th hole. And everyone else is beating me. But you become aware of it. And by becoming aware of it, you can learn to control it. But we'll also be learning things like how to apply whatever area of intelligence that you have can work into the game. For example, if you are a very musical person, you might be in a situation like the one I just described and say, what music would be really good right now? You might pop the headphones in between holes as you're walking from hole to hole because During when this game is being played, a lot of times you're going in different directions from other people. And when that happens, you can take a moment to yourself, put on some music, and gain control of that. These are things you can use for life, because imagine, in the office, things get out of control, or at home, or in a relationship. What if you learned how to gain control over that and to use it to use that energy for something productive or creative even? But there's other areas of intelligence too, visual, spatial, there's math, logic. Even people with verbal linguistic skills can kind of talk to other people and use that to their advantage in a game by creating certain types of conversations. So that's what that course will be about. And the last one, I'm very proud to talk about this one because I've been working on it for so long. It's called HikeStorming, which is just the combination of two very basic things, hiking and brainstorming. I just brought them together because I thought they needed to be brought together. Now, it's been done before, of course. Even Albert Einstein and his cohort used to go off into the woods, I think in Switzerland, and discuss major theoretical concepts. But the difference here is that this will be more of a curriculum. For example, a chart will be set up so that there will be levels of achievement based on a high level mental or intellectual challenge matched with a high physical challenge. Like you're going to try to ascend this peak while at the same time calculating some type of a strategy. Now that's an extreme version, but we're going to have variations like that we talk about. But the whole course will teach you not only how to set that up, like if you're a teacher, how you can set that up for your students, but if you're someone who likes to hike or you have a meetup group that likes to hike, you may want to use this as a way to get people together to strategize about something. Or if you're in business, when I lived in the Silicon Valley area, a lot of startup people would come with me on these hikes. So one of the things I do with HikeStorming is, of course, with everybody's permission, is I do some recordings and I turn those into podcast episodes. So that's the third course. And let's see if there's anything I left out. There's always more that I left out. There's 4 or 5 other classes I want to build. Again, I'm looking for funding, partners, independent contractors, and writers who have skills in these areas to help me complete the writing and get these up online. Thanks for your time, and I will hopefully talk to you soon.